that. حتى تعرفوا. Huh? Bismillah. Our Sheikh who came from, he was born and raised in Philadelphia, Alhamdulillah, and he's an Imam in New York currently, and he has background studies in Hadith. He studied in Medina, and he also studied in Yemen, and now he's helping out in the community with da'wah, counseling, lectures, and many other initiatives, as well as continuing his own studies. And فليتفضل مشكورا Sheikh إن شاء الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Friday night we mentioned two hadiths with regards to Allah commanding and ordering us via his prophet and messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam an tawada'u. Inna Allah awha ilayya an tawada'u. Allah has revealed to me for you to humble yourselves. And we said that one hadith, the hadith of Iyad radiyallahu anhu, it stated, Inna Allah awha ilayya an tawada'u hatta la yafkhara ahadun ala ahadin wa la yabghiya ahadun ala ahadin. And the second narration, ma naqasat sadaqatun min malin. So Allah has revealed to me, Allah gave to me, أن تواضعوا يعني هذه الأن تفسيرية إن الله أوحى إلي والذي أوحى إلي هو نقطة أن تواضعوا. Allah Azza wa Jal has given me the wahi for you to تتواضعوا أن تتواضعوا, for you to humble yourselves. The narration then states حتى للغاية, have so much humility or have enough humility, have a sufficient amount of humility until you don't يفخر أحد على أحد يبغي أحد على أحد. You're supposed to have enough or so much humility and humbleness that no one will pridefully boast against another, and so much or enough humility until no one will transgress the boundaries and violate another. You understand? Breaking it down in a different style of translation now. Allah has revealed to me to humble yourselves, so no one will. Meaning, Allah has given me the commands and the instructions for you to have one of two things, and or an and. Number one, أن تواضعوا, for you to have so much humility. And if you don't have that much humility, a great deal of humbleness, then at least have what? Enough. The basic amount of humility that prevents you from those two things mentioned in the hadith. You guys with me or not? It's a different breakdown now. You have so much humility in which the thought and the act of doing those things doesn't come to my mind, and if it does, I'm not even going to fall into it. Or there's a lack of humility that you have, some type of self-pride or whatever you want to call it, but at least have enough to hold you back, preventing you from making iftikhar, boasting and bragging, looking down upon the next person. Also, وَحَتَّى لَا يَبْغِي أَحَدْ عَلَى أَحَدٍ, physical aggression, verbal aggression. Because al-iftikhar, pride, boasting and bragging, feeling that you're better and superior to someone else, it doesn't necessarily have to come out verbally. You may not necessarily get physically harmed by it, but that's how I feel in my heart. I know I'm better than you. I know I'm superior than you. I know my language is better than yours. My culture is better than yours. I'm sorry. Listen, I didn't make you the way you look. That's on the inside. And of course, that's going to manifest itself. It's going to seep out. But that's not the same as يَبْغِي أَحَدْ عَلَى أَحَدٍ, in which I'm now verbally talking about you. You get it? I'm verbally transgressing the boundaries because of my lack of humility and humbleness on the inside. Or I physically oppress you. I can beat you up, I can do this to you, I can violate you because I don't have any tawadu', or your honor, or your reputation, or your wealth, etc. All right? It's crucially important for us to have the proper analysis of the prophetic traditions. Tahleel al-nusus al-nabawiyya. The proper analysis, understanding the words of the Prophet so thoroughly, inshallah, so clearly, in which you don't just hear it, but you feel it. And you get the point. You value it. You appreciate it. This is what the Prophet was talking about. Versus just memorizing the words, or just reading it, or just hearing it. The same old translation, the same way that was been presented for the last 30 years, but it was never properly, critically dissected and broken down. You guys with me? Right. Move forward. So the hadith states, إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَوْحَى إِلَيَّ. Allah has revealed to me in a dream. Allah has revealed to me with Jibreel. Allah Azza wa Jal has revealed to me in front of the Sahaba. They couldn't see Jibreel, but Jibreel came. And the Prophet ﷺ, had a convulsion, closed his eyes, he began to shake, he began to sweat. Jibreel came to him, and the Sahaba couldn't see it. Right? And there are hadiths with regards to that. فَلَمَّا سُرِّيَ عَلَيْهِ. Then, when it was over and done, the Prophet went back to his normal way, his normal mode. He told the Sahabi what he just asked about. Right? Other narrations which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, يُغْفَرُ لِلشَّهِيدِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ. That the martyr, the one who dies on the battlefield, for the cause of Allah will be forgiven for all sins. And then afterwards he told the Sahaba, إِلَّا الدَّيْنَ سَارَنِي بِهِ جِبْرِيلُ آنِفًا. Except for the debt, because Jibreel just came back to me, سَارَنِي. And he told me in secret. They didn't know, they didn't realize it. So there are different ways of revelation. نعم. هناك طرق للوحي. The dream, the Malak in front of the Sahaba by himself, Allah sending down the Quran, correcting something that the Prophet did or one of the Sahaba did, etc. Right? Sababi, right? Wabtida'i. The different types of the Quran being sent down, a reason or Allah just sending it down, etc. What's important is in this hadith, Allah revealed to me. One of the ways that He revealed to me, right? And from that which Allah has revealed to me and told me, and the Prophet ﷺ is expressing in his own words, أَن تَوَاضَعُوا, is for you to humble yourselves. Now the question is, how does a person humble himself? What are the ways, practical, that a person can humble himself in which he doesn't look down upon people, he doesn't violate people, he doesn't oppress people? There are three main ways, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Three practical ways of obtaining, achieving, and establishing, solidifying one's humility. Number one, أن يعرف العبد ربه معرفة صحيحة بأسمائه وصفاته وأفعاله وآلائه وأنعامه ومننه على العبد. Is for the servant to have a proper understanding of his Lord, for you to know Allah correctly, for you to know who your Lord is through His names, by His attributes, via His actions, His blessings, His gifts, knowing Allah the Mighty and the Most High. Number two, أن يعرف العبد نفسه معرفة حقيقية مبنية على الصدق والاعتراف. Is for the servant to know himself in reality, not skimming on the surface, but to keep it real with yourself. You know yourself. You know your shortcomings. You know your flaws. You know things about yourself that the other people don't know. You know how good you really aren't. You know how nervous you were when you made that shot. All right, Ozzy? You know they didn't see it, but your fingers were crossed when you shot that three-pointer on the buzzer. You knew. Man, whew, I can't believe I made that. And everyone else is saying, dang, you see that? He shot the three-pointer. But you know deep down inside that was what? A lucky shot, quote unquote. You get the point? It's for you to know, it's for you to realize your shortcomings and your faults and your own flaws. Way number three is for you to know the person against whom you're violating or showing pride or arrogance or having a lack of humility. is for you to compare yourself to him. In other words, I have flesh, you have flesh. I have skin, so do you. I have feelings, so do you. I have a wife and children I have to take care of, and so do you. Think about gun violence, right? Let's talk about gun violence, a big problem in the Islamic world, in the Muslim world, wars, or on the street corner, whatever the case may be, right? You're going to shoot somebody because something that happened to you or how you feel, right? But in reality, all of the pain, all of the problems, all of the disrespect, all of the hurt that's causing you to go put that gun to the next person, you're about to do the same thing, what? To them. His mom is going to be crying. His children are going to grow up without a father. His little brother is going to grow with that burning amber of revenge in his heart. He did this to my dad. I'm going to kill him when I get older. I'm going to get him back, etc., etc., etc. So the person that you're violating and you're oppressing and you're looking down upon, you need to compare yourself to them. Why should I be arrogant and prideful? And in reality, we're pretty much the same. I have a thing and he has a thing. I have a talent and so does he. I do this better, but you have that. And if you just look at the history of nations, the history of wars, the history of invasions, the history of colonizing, right? Oftentimes, the aggressor, the wrongdoer, the invader, the colonizer, he had to strive his hardest to justify his acts. Some countries, some races more than others. We're doing this to them, which is helping them in reality. Or the ends justifies the means. Or we were mandated by God to do this. Or science proves that we're made to do this. And that's because the human being can't ignore his conscience 100%. You can ignore your conscience from time to time. You can put it in the back of your head. You can turn the volume down. But in reality, it's, in most cases, what? It's always going to be there. So you have to tell yourself a lie. And the saddest thing about that is when you yourself believe the lie. Now you know you're really messed up. When you are convinced with the lie, that you're telling yourself, justifying what you're doing and that it's okay. And this comes from not thinking about the next person. How do you feel when that happens to you? How do you feel when someone treats you like that? In the United States, Canada is a bit different, right? But in the United States, I'm not saying that doesn't exist here, but it's a bit different. That's a fact. But in the United States, there are many problems with regards to race, discrimination, many problems. They're not just a black and white thing. All different types of races and people from America who migrated to the United States is a big problem. In politics, leaders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So people, a couple of years ago, or a year, 2 years, whatever ago, we had a president. And of course, you guys know this president was supposedly saying a lot of stuff. And a lot of stuff he did say, and a lot of stuff he did do. And a lot of craziness there was. And a big part of that was race and discrimination, make America great again, kick out foreigners, blah, 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 blah. No problem. So there was one race or races of Americans, whether they were born there, whether they had migrated there, Muslim or other than the Muslim. Let's talk about the Muslims. And they said, this president is so racist. This president he's discriminating, he's this, it's not fair, he can't say this, blah, 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 blah. And then other Muslims who've been in the country for a very longer time, they said, oh, you see how it feels now. Welcome to the club. We've been feeling this and experiencing this and suffering from this for what? Hundreds of years. Whether it's a black American or white American. The Irish. Right? What type of prejudice and discrimination do they suffer from? From other Anglo-Saxon people. That's a fact. In and outside of America. Dhulm, fighting for their freedom, for their independence, for the unity of their country. We've been doing this, what? This is not new. We've been doing it. My father did it, etc., etc., etc. Black Americans, they said, you got a taste of racism, huh? Eh? He's right. Say, right? You see how it feels, right? for someone to treat you in a way, talk to you in a way, for no other reason except for what you look like. Welcome to the club. So oftentimes people, they don't think about how the next man feels. And sometimes they can't understand it until what? They feel it themselves. So some of these Americans, they were saying like, look, I don't want to hear you boo-hooing. I'll buy you a box of Kleenex. Go ahead. You can cry, wipe your eyes. Welcome to the club. That's number one. And secondly, how do you treat me and my people when I come into your masjid? Okay. And of course, we know that what that president said when he made that blockade, or he made that ban on those 7 countries which were predominantly Muslim countries. How can you do this? This is unconstitutional, blah, blah. He said, tell the Muslims to elect the refugees in their countries. So don't tell me and call me a racist when you guys yourselves can't even open your borders for your own, etc. You get the point I'm trying to make? This is one of the ways that a human being can obtain and can solidify and can enhance his humility, knowing his Lord properly. Allah Azza wa Jalla is the strongest. He is the biggest. He knows the most. Allah has the dominion, biyadihil mulk, in his hand. Right? All you own, if anything, is a what? A city, a state, a country, a block, of projects, an island. Right? You're an emperor of a continent. You have lands and okay, but that's still nothing to Allah's mulk. So there's no need for you to puff yourself up. Let alone the fact that there was a time in which you weren't the king. And there's going to be a time in which you are not the king. Through death, through them removing you, etc., etc., etc. It's not going to last long. So for real, you're not really the man like that. The creator of man is bigger and greater. And there are other men as well who are better than you, stronger than you, had more than you, etc. So the first step is to know your Lord. That Allah Azza wa Jalla is bigger, He's greater, He's stronger, He owns more. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more you know your Lord, the more you study Allah's names and attributes, the more you acquaint yourself with your Maker, the more humble, inshallah ta'ala, you will be. And this is why some scholars, they say, learning and studying Allah's names and attributes is the foundation of all knowledge and science. Starting point. So learn Allah's names and learn Allah's attributes. Look at what Allah does. Look at what Allah did. Read about what Allah will do. And that's supposed to have an effect on you coming lower to the ground. And then looking at yourself when you get sick. The strongest man, right? How many wars were fought in which the defeat didn't take place on the battlefield, but there was plague. The army were wiped out through infection, through disease. These big, strong, powerful warriors were bedridden, stuck, wiped out. Look how weak the human is. You get sick. How do you feel when you're sick? Right? You don't want to get out of bed, right? And the last form of COVID, Omicron, right? How did it feel? Huh? Pain, agony. Your muscles are what? Of no use. Every single square inch in your body is aching. You can't move. You need someone to bring you water. You need someone to do this. You need someone to help you go to the bathroom. You need someone to help you make wudu. So if you have a problem with pride and boasting and bragging because of your strength, you're brolic, think about a time in which you're weak. Think how smallest little injury can just mess you up. Like a car, right? You ride over a nail, a stone, and what? Pff, tire's gone. Just like that. Fragile. So the human being, he has weaknesses. Human beings have flaws, right? A woman who's very beautiful, the standards of beauty, and she looks down upon other women who aren't as beautiful as she is. She thinks that she's everything, okay? How long does it take you to do your hair? How long does it take you to pick out your clothes, to do your makeup, to do this with your skin, to do this, to prevent this, to get rid of this blemish, to hide this? The diets that you have to go through to keep this weight, to keep this, removing hair from your body. Some women, they may spend 24 hours to take photos, to look nice for someone, right? It's a long time. So your beauty in reality, it really isn't what? It's not all of that. Let alone the fact that a time is going to come in which your beauty is going to fade. The wrinkles are going to come. Your face is going to fall and sag. This is going to go away. Your hair is going to turn gray. It's going to happen. Your teeth, etc. It's not going to last forever. So look at yourself. Look at your weaknesses. Look at the things that you need. And last but not least is compare yourself. Use sympathy and empathy to the next human being. How does it feel when someone treats you that way? It doesn't feel good, does it? It's not a nice feeling, is it? So therefore, why do it to others? So these are 3 practical ways for a person, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, will obtain humility and humbleness. Now, one may ask, let's see how much time we got. We don't have enough time for that. All right. As far as the individual, one's family, one's community, how does this hadith pertain to those other dynamics? Then first and foremost is humility is supposed to be universal. You're supposed to humble yourself in front of the people that are bigger and better than you. And you're supposed to humble yourself in front of people that aren't as big and bad as you are. And when we talk about a family, that literally has a magical effect. When we talk about a leader, that has a magical effect. I think I told this story before. Maybe some of you have read it before, lovers of history. There was a woman in a village. She was in ancient China, and the woman was a peasant. She wasn't of noble, high birth. Forget today, but back in those days, it was a major class caste system. Major, like big. The peasants and the nobles, they didn't mix at all. So this one woman, she probably was a farmer or a weaver or whatever. She was just a peasant woman. And she had a neighbor who was also a peasant as well. And both of their sons were conscripted into the army of one of the dynasties of ancient China, right? So one woman, she got word of her son, and that her son, he didn't die on the battlefield. Her son wasn't wounded or maimed, lost a foot or arm or eye. He wasn't disfigured, etc. He wasn't taken captive. He wasn't a deserter. But she got word that her son was in a lot of pain and suffering and agony. And that was that her son had become very ill. Like I said, how a disease can wipe out the army before it even goes to fight. And the son had developed an abscess. And in that abscess was a lot of pus that had to be removed and taken from the body. So the woman, she was in anguish. My son, he's going to die. Oh, my son, my poor son, he can't even fight. He can't even have an honorable death, etc., etc., etc. And then the woman, she was informed that the commander, the general of the entire army, was making his rounds around his soldiers in the camp, those by the fire, over the kettle eating, those practicing, those fixing their weapons, those planning and strategy, those preparing medicines, etc., etc. And he passed by the infirmary where the sick and wounded soldiers are. And he happened to pass by a young man, and he happened to recognize the young man. You're from such and such province. You're from such and such village. I know blah, 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 blah. What's the matter? He asked the doctor, he asked the physician. The physician told him he has this infection, he has such and such and such and such. So the general, shockingly, got on his knees by the cot or the bed, and he himself sucked the pus from the young man's wound with his own mouth. Spit the pus out, the doctor wrapped him up, blah, 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 blah. So the mother, she got word of this. And the mother, she immediately burst with tears. She fell to her knees and she started crying hysterically. So her friend, she says, what's the matter? You should be happy that your son's still alive. You should be happy that your son was looked after by the top general himself. He's noble, your son's a peasant. This is an honor for you. And she said, you don't know what you're talking about. Be quiet. What do you mean? She said, this is the last time, or the last, before my son went away to fight, Now I know I'll never ever see my son again. I'll never see my son again. She's like, how is this? What do you mean? She said, many years ago, my son's father, my husband, he served in the same army, under the same general. He became wounded, he became sick, and the general did the same thing to him. And from that day, my husband, his father, made a solemn oath never ever to leave that general's side. And my husband remained with that general until he was slain on the battlefield. Now that he's done the same thing to my son, I know that I'll never see my son again. What's the highlighting point from the story? It's just shahid min al-qissa. What's the point of this story? Because of the humility of the general that he showed to a basic, simple, humble peasant soldier, he did what? He stole his heart. Dang, the general himself cares about me. I'm not just a pawn to die, because when he wins on the battlefield, who's going to get the credit, see, man? No doubt. How many of you guys know about the people in the army of Napoleon? Name his generals, let alone the people that were getting blown to bits by cannons. You don't know any of them, but you know what? Bonaparte. And the people who allowed him to win were the what? The average soldiers who suffered marching, suffered camping, suffered on the battlefield, suffered coming back. But the general, he takes the lion's share of the victory. That's a fact. That's a fact about that. The coach, right? But the people playing, they don't get the credit that the quarterback gets. Without the offensive line, there would be no, well, how could that? But it doesn't work like that. So therefore, for this man to care about me, to be concerned about me, to put himself at risk for my low status, my sake, he snatched the boy's heart, just like he had previously snatched the what? The husband's heart. So when you're talking about instilling loyalty, love, trust, respect, these are all values needed for a solid family unit. These are all values needed for a successful masjid. These are all values needed for a successful state. And this is why some people say it's better to be loved than feared. Some people hold that view. And that's because eventually they'll overcome your fear. They'll unite. They'll join together. They'll find some way to poison you, to get rid of you somehow, some way. But if they truly love you, that's something that is extremely hard to remove from people's hearts. My love for you, my loyalty to you, it pierced my heart. That day that you were there for me, that day that you gave me your last dollar, that day that you did this for my sake, that day you took care of me, you looked out for me, I'll never ever forget it. So that's why the woman was crying. So the leader, the husband, the father, the imam, the khalifa, the mayor, the governor, the person up top, this is one of the benefits of humility versus I'm above you, you're beneath me, you're going to serve me, you're going to obey me, you're my son. Just shut up and listen to me. I'm your father. You're my wife. Be quiet and obey me. It may work temporarily. You may get some results, what? Temporarily, but know for sure deep down inside, most of the times they're going to resent you. They're going to hate you. They're going to be happy when you leave. They're going to wait for something to happen to you. Or if it's a teenager, in most cases, the teenager is going to buck and rebel. I don't want to get a tattoo. I think tattoos are ugly and corny and stupid. But just because you forced me and you said, be quiet, I'm going to get a tattoo. I'd rather wear hijab. I'd rather cover up. But just because you treat me the way you do, I'm going to uncover rebellion. So oftentimes, one of the easiest ways of living in a family unit, a family dynamic, leadership, etc. What did he say? If you wish to lead the people, then walk behind them. So humility, no doubt about it, has a magical effect. It's a reality. So I think now we're going to stop. Salat al-Isha is soon. Perhaps we'll take a few questions. Bidnillahi ta'ala. I didn't want to take too much time. We got a little lost in the story, right? But you guys get the moral of the story, right? And the benefit of tawadu' with regards to dynamics, leader and led, right? Allah surely knows best. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Mufti. We ask Allah to make us amongst those when they hear the reminder, they listen to it, they benefit, and they keep it with them, inshallah. We'll take a few questions from the brother's side as well as the sister's side, and then we'll stop for Salat al-Isha. So if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand. And the question could be pertaining and relating to the topic, or it can be other than that.
Allahu Akbar. Khair inshallah. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. It was my pleasure to be with you brothers these days. Wallahi. Hopefully soon, inshallah. Kareem. Jazakallah khairan. That's your son? MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum. Come. It's okay if he's shy. It's all right. Shy is good. Assalamu alaikum. How you doing? You all right? What's your name? Adam? MashaAllah. Allah bless you. How old are you? 10. What you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? You don't know? Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, something good. Allah bless you, Adam. Fadda Abu Rumaysa. How should a male deal with that? Excuse me. Well, as long as your daughter's young, you take it to the masjid. 2, 3, even 4, even a little older than that. Not best. She's with you. She's under your protection. You leave her supervised. And the more she understands, the more you explain to her about gender and role and sister side and brother side, but there's nothing wrong with that. Your young daughter comes to the masjid, that's fine. And only Allah knows, once more, the concept of stealing someone's heart. You may steal your little daughter's heart. She loves the masjid. I remember sitting on Abby's lap in the masjid. I remember he took me on a piggyback ride in the masjid. I remember every time we went to the masjid, when we left, he took us to get ice cream. Psychology is strong. So you may plant something, you may infect her heart from a young age, the house of Allah. If you be quiet in the salah, if you do good, I'll buy you a snack, I'll buy you a toy. Look at that. So I would advise with a man taking his young children to the masjid as much as he or she possibly can. And only Allah knows what you want to appreciate and what you want to remember when you get older. Everyone has a special memory from their dad or their father, the masjid the first time, or a bad memory. I'm not in the masjid, I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm hanging out, I'm in the shooting people or whatever because they always hollered at me in the masjid. The older brothers was always grumpy and disgruntled in the masjid. My Duxi teacher was always what? Smacking us what? In the masjid. It's a fact. This is reality, huh? Right? Am I making this up? Many people, they feel like this. I don't want to go there. Every time I go there, I was just in, Minnesota a couple months ago. The brother said, man, he said, haram, your hairstyle's haram, your pants are haram, this haram, that's haram, everything's haram. The moment I step in the masjid, the older brothers, haram, 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 haram. He's traumatized. So make the experience for the children in the masjid something memorable. And only Allah knows the effect that's going to have on their upbringing. And the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us about a child that grows up obeying Allah and worshiping Allah and how they'll be shaded on the Day of Judgment. So if the child is going to be rewarded and shaded, what do you think about the what? The parent, the one who's responsible for that. So no doubt, bring your daughter to the masjid. And at the same time, as she grows and develops, you teach her and you show her that you're a girl, you're different. He's a boy, he's different. But at a certain age, there are many things which are unisex, and there are things which aren't haram. It's not like she's a grown woman uncovered, she's a little girl. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Tafadhal.
Sister asks, people perceive me as humble, but I don't feel humble inside. Can you advise on this?
People perceive you as humble, but you don't feel humble on the inside. Good. Keep feeling that way. Keep striving. Make yourself better. Keep trying. What the people say, it's not like you requested it or you wanted it. Allah gave that to you. Try to live up to it, inshallah ta'ala. Don't get caught up in that. Your responsibility is what you do, not what the people do. If they call you humble, if they think that you're pious, mashallah. Strive. Don't worry too much what the people are saying and feeling. And Allah knows best.
Any other questions from the brothers?
طيب. One Ramadan to the next, 5 prayers to the next, Jum'ah to the next, are a means of expiation for that which is between them. مَجْتُنِبَتِ الْكَبَائِرُ, as long as the chief sins are avoided. A person makes a major sin and he repents from that, will he receive the reward, etc. One way of looking at it is that the minor sins are wiped away, period. Even if a person made a major sin, the minor sins are wiped away. And the good deeds in general, I said, wipe away minor sins. And the major sins need a specific tawbah. It's one way of understanding it. And another way of understanding it is that as a condition, a stipulation. You don't get that minor sin removed unless the major sin is totally what? Avoided. But in most cases, and Allah knows best, this hadith and other hadiths, they're speaking on the virtue of those deeds and how they wipe away minor sins, even without istighfar from the minor sins. And a major sin has its own separate compartment, which is tawbah in most cases. Wallahu alam.
Questioner asks, what are practical steps one can take in minimizing sins which have become habitual or a part of your everyday life?
Practical steps. Why sins have become habitual and a part of your everyday life. May Allah help us all. Look at your environment. Time to move. Time to get away. Look at your friends. They're helping you, even if they're not calling you to sin. But are they helping you get out of it? Mediocre. I have bad friends, I have mediocre friends, I have no great friends. So of course we're all going to say we need to avoid the what? The bad friends. But it doesn't mean that you keep the what? The mediocre friends. I need friends that are pushers and pullers. Right? Number 3 is look at your mental health, your mental state. You may be making a sin because of something that happened to you when you were a child. I'm not blaming your sin on psychology, saying it's okay, but there's a reason. A human being is a human being. It's like a machine, right? There's a reason behind the glitch, whether you know about it or not. But the thing is malfunctioning. There's something what? Wrong. What's wrong with this? It's not working. No, it's something that's you're not doing right. Something that's off. And the same applies to a human. Something you were exposed to, something you were prevented from. You need to figure it out. And once you figure it out, you get the necessary counseling and therapy. I never had money when I was growing up. I was always poor. So therefore, we have the concept of rags to riches. One of the reasons why I'm such a spendthrift. One of the reasons why I'm so flashy. I love to show off. I spend so much money. I waste so much money on brand names, on this and that, because I never had nothing when I was growing up. So you need to work on fixing that and healing from that. Wahakada. All right? So your environment, your friends, your upbringing, your past, your history, right? And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, what's important is that you keep striving. You fall down 7 times, you get up 8 times. Don't stop making tawbah. Don't quit. Don't give up. Even if you fall back, keep making tawbah. Keep trying. Keep striving bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And eventually, if you do these steps properly, one way or another, you're going to find the cause of you habitually falling into that sin. One way or another. You'll pinpoint it. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And once you pinpoint it, you have to have sabr. It may not stop overnight. It may not happen overnight. It may be painful. You're going to need some mujahada. You're going to have to fight yourself. And most importantly is for you to realize is that the human being is weak. And you don't necessarily have to do everything yourself. Beg Allah for help. Declare your weakness in front of Allah. After that, seek help from other human beings. Yo, I need your help. I'm struggling. I can't stop by myself. And the proof is that I've been doing it for 20 years. If I could stop when I want to, I would have. I need you to help me. Why that? Wallahu alam.
Ahsanallahu alaikum. Questioner says, how can I achieve humility as one who is constantly praised or seen as someone knowledgeable?
How can I receive or obtain humility when I get constant praise from people? They see me as being someone knowledgeable, etc., etc. People praising you, people believing things about you, saying things about you, does not mean that you yourself aren't humble. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, how humble was he? How many people praised him, lauded him? How many people went to his janazah? Imam Ahmad was a household celebrity, and he hated fame. He looked down upon fame. He condemned fame. So just because people praise you and believe something about whether it's true or not, it doesn't mean that you yourself aren't humble. So if you are humble, if you do have knowledge, and if people praise you, mashallah, that's from Allah. And if not, as I said before, avoid the times and the places for people to praise you and say things about you that aren't true. Stay away from it. And most importantly, if it's unavoidable, no, we don't care what you say. You do have knowledge. You are art, then you need to live up to it. Let that be, inshallah ta'ala, the inspirational fuel. People think that I really have knowledge, so let me really study. Not to please them, but let me wahaka that. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. The effects of sinning while seeking knowledge. Unfortunate, ruinous from so many different aspects. The first aspect is seeking knowledge is something that is not based off of your efforts, your intelligence, your memory, your teachers, but it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a light that Allah places inside the heart of His believing slave. And Allah tells us the light that He provides for the heavens and the earth. And Allah brings a parable and a similitude of that light, the heart of the believer, right? The believer's heart, his mind, his actions, etc. So you're seeking something from the one who owns it and possesses it by disobeying Him. There's a problem. Secondly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, sins cloud your mind. And learning requires a clear mind. Sins cause a person to lack confidence, to have cowardice, paranoia. All of those things will get in the way of you obtaining knowledge as it's kama yanbaghi and giving and passing on that knowledge. Also, sins, especially if they become habitual, they take away your time. They preoccupy you. The time spent listening to this, watching this, eating this, drinking this, being with this one or that one, that could have been time with the Quran. That could have been time with Sahih Bukhari. And how much knowledge is out there. There's so much knowledge to obtain, and so much that you don't have, so much that you don't know, so much that the people need. Oh man, there's no time to study all of that. Okay, that 15 minutes every day, 30 minutes, that's all time that you can get that other knowledge. And last but not least, it could be a punishment for you to forget what you used to know. It could be a punishment for the understanding to be taken away from you. And sins, they blunt a person's understanding. They block a person's wit. And all of those things are needed to obtain ilm, the sacred knowledge of Islam. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Ahsanallahu alaikum. A sister is asking, what is your advice for dealing with a manager that is a bully after you have tried everything?
Dealing with a manager that's a bully after you've tried everything. Well, I don't think you've tried everything. And that's because everyone, no matter how big or powerful or aggressive, everyone has a thumbscrew. Everyone. Everyone has a weak point, a soft underbelly. Everybody. That's a fact. Because that person's a human being. So they're this, they're that, they have a position, there's something that they're afraid of or they fear or it's one way or another. You just haven't figured it out yet. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And there are different ways of looking at it. If the person is a Muslim or if the person isn't a Muslim. There are different ways. It depends on the situation. And it depends on the relationship with that person with you at work. All right? At the end of the day, in most cases, bullies are very insecure people on the inside. In most cases, bullies are people themselves who are bullied and picked on and neglected or abandoned and hurt. So the only thing that they know is to pass on that pain. So sometimes, I'm not saying this is absolute. Sometimes some people are lost beyond reach. That's a fact. But there are some times in which the best way of dealing with a bully is to show them love. It's to give them something that they never got before. Say something to them, do something for them, give them a gift, something that they never really had before. And their initial reaction may be to bully you further, but at the end of the day, I'm like, dang, that's nice. You may soften them, you may help them, especially if they're Muslim. A non-Muslim, that may be dawah, because they're expecting people to either fight back, but I'm bigger than you, no matter how much you fight back, I'm gonna beat you or fire you, or they're expecting people to just run and be scared and to bow down to them. In other words, this is a third method that they're unprepared for. Everyone understand this or not? You have somebody that's egotistical, whatever, right? Ego tripping. One of the two things is going to happen at the workplace. I'm your supervisor. I'm going to push you around. I'm going to throw my weight around because I'm your boss. I'm going to bully you. In most cases, you're either going to do what? Try to stand up for yourself, but I'm your what? I'm your boss. I dare you to say something back. I'll fire you right now. I dare you. So even if you want to fight back, head-on collision, that person has the upper hand. And they're ready for that. They're expecting that. And if not, then they're definitely expecting for you to what? Curl and tuck up. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, boss. Expecting you to kiss up, etc., etc. They're ready for that. But for you to show them kindness, for you not to get mad, not to get angry, for you not to be scared, and at the same time try to lend, they're not ready for that. So that may work. And that may not work, depending on the bully. Sometimes you might have to just what? Gang up on a bully. Or you might have to get a bigger bully, right? Someone who's above him, right? That he thinks you don't have access to. Or you're too scared to go to the big, I'll lose my job, it's going to be embarrassing, it's going to take time, but I'm going to bring the bully on you. That. So it depends. Wallahu alam.
Inshallah, we'll take one last question. Brother Mazin.
Calamity oftentimes is a blessing in disguise. First and foremost. And some of the best lessons in life are those that are taught the hard way, those that are learned the hard way. Some of the best lessons in life, the lessons that you really appreciate and value and that you get. Wisdom is not acquired without a price, period. Right? That's number one. So sometimes the calamity is a blessing, for real, for real. Secondly, is to know for sure that it was meant to happen. It's qadr. If you believe in the qadr, Allah decreed for this to happen. No matter what, how, it was meant to take place. Number three, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, is for you to return to Allah. Asking Allah to help you. Asking Allah to give you better in your musibah. The prophetic supplication for that. Right? After that, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, is for you to realize that there are people who are closer to Allah than you, had a higher status, greater knowledge, and they were afflicted and affected worse than you were. And Allah clearly talks about this in the Quran. Allah clearly gives comfort to the Prophet ﷺ when he tells about the previous prophets and messengers. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he told the Prophet, when he asked him how many prayers has Allah mandated, has Allah given you? 50. And he said, I've dealt with Bani Israel for a longer time. I fought with them. I was in the trenches with them. Your ummah doesn't have the ability to make that amount of prayers. Go back and ask for a lesser, etc., etc., etc. So there's always someone who went through something worse, longer. Someone who lost more than you. You're not the first person to lose or to be stricken by a calamity, nor will you be the last. And that goes back to tawadu', humility. Don't look at yourself as being so special, so unique. People are suffering around the world. People have suffered for centuries, and other people will suffer. So these are different things that you train your mind, you train your soul, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to have the necessary sabr upon the calamity, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And of course you make tawbah. Ask Allah to forgive you of your sins. Return to Allah. Run back to Allah at the time of the calamity. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Barakallahu feek. Thank you for the beneficial talk, and it came at a very timely time for our community, and we ask Allah to allow us to continue to tread a path towards Him. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to accept from us, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I hope that we continue to attend the mosque and the masjid in this manner, continue to benefit, and continue to stay connected and close to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That brings us to the close of our program, as well as the last lecture of Sheikh Mufti's stay here in Ottawa. And we ask Allah to allow him to return safely and to bi'idhnillahi ta'ala come back another time. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa iyyakum. Thanks a lot, guys. Alhamdulillah, Allah reward you all. Thanks to the masjid, the imam or the imams, the admin, the old, the young, the brothers, the sisters. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to my entourage, my squad, the brothers that have been holding me down. You know who you are. Over the last couple of days, all of you. Jazakumullahu khairan. You guys make my trip, alhamdulillah, always comfortable, always nice, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullahu khairan.